Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for February 27th, 2026. I'm Ben J. Fisher, sharing my screen and moderating. And also present are Ralph Kohler, Simo Hell, and Pallavi Singh. Thank you all for joining. Ralph suggested that we look at some of the issues related to moving the navigation module into the standard and umami profiles. And I guess we'll start with this one, 3439012, usability review and feedback from testing. And this is one that Ralph opened a couple of years ago now, almost 2 years. And Ralph, you said there was one point in particular?
Yep, point one. Basically, the mixed interaction patterns if you're using the mouse, it's point one. The interacting with the new navigation by mouse has several potential stumbling blocks for the user. Something we've identified back then and agreed on, and there's also agreement on the issue itself, but there wasn't really some feedback from the maintainers yet, and therefore also no explicit issue for it created yet, because we were uncertain how to proceed. And from my perspective, could you perhaps also open the link to the NN group, Niels Norman one? That
Where's
is,
that?
it's also on the usability meeting comment.
In,
On the for today's meeting, sorry.
ah,
There, see also point 13. It's right up, go a bit up, a bit up, a bit up. There you see also point 13 in HTTPS www.nn group. Further up. And one more.
there we go.
It is. Yep. And if you go to point 13, I'm not too much a fan of Niels Norman group anymore, but still it's a valid point in that context.
Okay, so Ralph, you're familiar. You've looked at this recently, but for the rest of us, let's read your comment and see what it's about in context. So let me just move this tab out of the way. And point one, interacting with the new navigation by mouse has some problems. So let me log in here. Get the Zoom window out of the way. And I don't know if you can see those pop-up windows, but I currently have two password managers fighting it out, and I tell both of them not to save the admin login. And I think the main point is this uh,
You have to go to,
behavior of expanding on hover.
yeah,
Go
but
ahead.
go down to the configuration, for example. We need one that has a sub menu, because the point is on top level menu items you hover, but over there within basically the sub menu, then you have to click. So it's basically a mixed interaction pattern that way. Because you can't hover for something if you would scroll up with your mouse cursor that way. If it would also hover for sub menus, it would be an accordion, opening, collapsing, opening, collapsing. So that's understandable, that choice, but still that mixed pattern struggles me still and makes me think in which context I have to click, in which context I have to hover, And then there is also the problem on the Meals Norman Group's article in 13. I just scroll 1 second. I quickly read. It's better to have a consistent, reliable interaction pattern across devices and input modalities. In addition, and that's the point, accidental triggering and dismissal of hover activate menus is frustrating to all users. And that's something I've observed for myself in my own usage of the navigation, but also, yeah, for example, you, Benji, also sometimes accidentally triggered the expansion of that sidebar or also others. And also then it's the point with the hover, you also have the problem if you have, for example, somebody using a click device pointer and has tremors, that way the mouse cursor could move out of the hover area and the menu could collapse again and so forth. So um, it's tricky and has a few downsides. Let's put it that way.
So I think our recommendation was, um, first of all, they should be consistent. And secondly, we recommend click to expand rather than hover to expand.
Yeah, but on the other hand, I also see that for some, it's convenient to have a hover and therefore might be, and you can't cater for everyone. And if I remember correctly, the maintainers at least liked the hover functionality and put also a lot of effort in that it behaved more robust in regards of hovering with that triangle that you don't have to move horizontally until you reach basically the expanded area, but you're also able to basically move in a triangle, yeah, like in diagonal from the top level menu item to the submenu, and it remains open.
Right. You can certainly go straight across and down without having it collapse. If you go straight down, it does collapse. But if you go on some sort of diagonal, hmm,
It has to be
I
close, yeah,
thought there was.
yeah, like that. That one is tolerated, and therefore I wonder, for example, if it would make sense to have some sort of user setting where the user is able to decide the behavior, if it should be that mixed pattern or if it should be a click only based pattern and make basically the click only based the default. That would be a compromise.
This reminds me of when we have been talking about user preferences for being able to set a verbose mode for help text and stuff like that. So this kind of I think falls into the same category, being able to per user configure the behavior of the menu.
Yep.
So in a way it would suit if but I think we need some place to put this personalization. That it would be good, but I think clicking should be the default.
Yep.
All right. So we opened this issue, or Ralph opened this issue, as I said, almost 2 years ago. We recommended continuous showing and hiding of the drawer on hover when moving from username up to the sidebar towards create makes things busy and distracting. The mix of interaction patterns on click and hover for top level and only on click for submenu items in the drawer leads into confusion and conflicts, in particular in the context of top level menu items. Even with the triangle pattern, we occasionally managed getting out of the hover tunnel. Um, so we, so this issue was opened almost 2 years ago. Ralph, you've commented on it. Some other people have commented on it as well, but the issue is still active. No one has opened a pull request Um, are the other commenters here generally agreeing with the points you made in the issue summary, or is
You
there debate?
scroll, if you scroll up, then yes, and afterwards it branched out about a few other details. But if you further up, one second, I quickly show my comment number, yeah, number 9, for example.
I haven't been following this much at all, but tested this out for the first time today. I'd have to agree with the issue about mouse interaction. I found it too sensitive as I would often accidentally trigger a drawer to open. I also expected to click, and if I tried to hover and click quickly, it would respond to both the hover and the click, animating twice. I also found it annoying if I opened reports and then move the mouse to the top of the drawer quickly, but miss completely. It closes the drawer and I need to reopen it. I think clicking would work best. I also think it should be possible to middle click or control click on the top level items to open their index pages in a new tab. Currently, this is only possible if the item does not have children. Let me just test that. So if I do a double click, I can open in a new tab. But here, if I try the same thing, I don't know if you can see the pop-up, but I'm getting some options such as save page and select all, but I don't have the option to open it in a new tab.
Yeah. That's
Um, I
because
guess if I
basically the link is the structure up there. Yep.
this is a regular link and I can open the structure page there if I want. And there's media that I opened successfully. Um, so so what are the next steps? We have this open issue. Um, no one has worked on it. Should we bring this issue to the attention of the maintainers? Should we open a new, more specific issue about the click to focus? Let me go back up to the top because there were two other points. What are the next steps to deal with this? Go ahead, Ralph.
Personally, I would basically open a dedicated issue for point 1 to make it actionable. At the moment, it's just a review, and we've waited basically for feedback, how to proceed. So the only problem I see in regards of the proposed resolution, if we go with a setting um, on the user page, that would have the problem that at this point it would be a single checkbox or a single radio button component for basically making the setting, and aside that there isn't anything else, and therefore it would be quite sparse and might go also unnoticed on the user settings page, on the user profile page. If you have, for example, a local task that is called user settings, or if you circle back to the idea from what Mike Gifford had, I guess it was, to have basically a accessibility settings page, and that navigation setting goes into the direction as well, from my perspective. So simply
Uh,
having a second local task up there.
oh, you'd want to create uh, a separate page for this because
Yeah.
this form already has things like locale settings. You can set your time zone and language settings.
It brings me basically to one of the other issues I've added for today's meeting. If you take a look in, not sure if you've noticed, in the upper right corner.
The dot, dot, dot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I can't see that because of the Zoom window getting in the way. Um,
So
there's the
we are
view
currently on the
tab.
view tab. This is the view tab. And that's another problem, a serious one from my perspective.
Oh, and that seems like a bug. There's this,
Yeah.
this is empty, but I
Oops.
can go back to the edit tab with this button, I guess. Um, let's try to resolve one
One at
issue
a
at a
time.
time. So we can open an issue. Um, I would say start with the simplest version, which is just to change the behavior. Um, and if there's pushback on that, we can talk about making it configurable. If we do make it configurable, then yes, this page is already too complicated, but sort of the simplest thing to implement is a new section on this page, um, along with language settings and locale settings. We could call it navigation settings if it's dedicated to the navigation module. Um, or we might have something more generic like UI settings. But I wouldn't start with that. I would start with just changing the behavior from open on hover to open on click.
Okay, open on hover to open on click. If pushback, then uh, user settings on view. So basically, you would go for a, in air quotes, three-step process. In the first step, change the behavior from hover to click. And then in the next step, in case there's pushback or still the opinion that hover is needed, add basically as a fast fix a field set to that views local item on the profile page. And in a later point, to solidify things, to have dedicated local items for example, accessibility, where it could go, or for other settings if there are more, because putting it alone onto such a single page, that single setting would be odd.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even plan that far in advance. I would just do the first step and keep in mind the second step.
Okay.
We'll see what the future holds for uh, putting the configuration. Because if we just convince them to change the behavior because we have this sort of trusted resource that agrees with our recommendation, maybe we can just change the behavior and stop there.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, yeah, creating a dedicated issue, moving the details on that point one in combination with basically the NN group, and that should do the trick. And the proposed resolution is simply, yeah, remove the hover and make it click only.
Let me just check. So this was a follow-up to a usability meeting in 2024. And that one, well, the only related issue here is the issue you created. So I was hoping that there would be another related issue um, before the navigation module was declared stable or something, but a comment on an implementation issue for the navigation module, but I don't see one. Um, okay, we're almost halfway through the hour. Are there further things people want to bring up around this first point? The hover versus click on the navigation menu?
Not for me.
Okay. Um, so then let's go back to the issue for today's meeting. For the sake of the recording, that's 3574712. And your next point, make the order of menu items in the content menu consistent with the order of primary tabs on admin content.
That's something we've quickly touched last week,
Yeah, I
if
think
you
I
remember.
remember that.
Yeah.
And this is issue 3427660. And it's pretty straightforward if we go to admin content, right?
Yeah. Or
Uh,
admin blocks, doesn't matter. Anything in the navigation content, in the content navigation block, do the trick.
and then what I'm forgetting the second half of it. So one half of it is this order of tabs, content blocks, files, media. And
For you,
is it
due to the
create?
fact, no, due to the fact that you're using Umami, the detail I've noticed is you don't have comments there. Um, in the standard profile, you have the comments local item as well. So you have
Okay.
content as content blocks, comments, files, and media as local items, while in the navigation sidebar, you have blocks, content, files, and media. So therefore, the order.
Well, slow down. Let me
Oh,
just
yeah.
go ahead and enable the comment module. Uh, we noticed before the recording started that couldn't do that with Drush, which I imagine will be fixed soon. But yes, we can enable comment module through the user interface. And then when I reload this page, so go ahead.
Oh, that's interesting. The order is also different for you now. For me, and local items is content, blocks, comments, files, and media. And for you, you have content, blocks, files, comments, media.
Um, so I guess the umami profile is somehow affecting that.
Probably, yeah. But yeah, the key point I try to make is basically uh, the order of the top level menu items in the sidebar and the order of the local items differs, and that increases the cognitive load. So basically, it should be identical for one. So basically, move blocks after content. And the other point is basically that comments is missing in the sidebar. So it's for one, it's shape-shifting, and for shape-shifting objects, on the other hand, it's also isolated object in the context of the comments.
Okay,
So
so I was looking for a submenu, but it's these top level menu items. Blocks, content, files, media, which is alphabetical. but this gives priority to content.
Is it necessarily alphabetical? Because if you take a look at the administration navigation block, that isn't alphabetical. You have structure, appearance, extent, configuration, people, reports. So I'm
I'm
not
sorry,
sure if it's
which menu do you want me to look at?
the top level menu item for the admin navigation block. There you have the structure top level menu item, which is S, then A, then E, then C. So that isn't alphabetical, and I'm not sure if the content navigation block is
Oh,
alphabetical either.
s- slow down. The top level item for administration.
The administration block, the top level menu items are structure, appearance, extent,
Okay,
configuration, and that isn't.
it's not labeled as administration. So this is the block you're talking about, right?
Yeah. Also,
Okay,
apologies. Yeah.
right. These are not alphabetical, right?
Yeah. So I'm not sure if basically the content navigation block above with blocks, content files, and media is necessarily alphabetical. And
Right. Currently it is.
yeah. But
Um,
basically that shouldn't matter. It should basically simply the order in the navigation sidebar should be identical to the order on the content page for the local items, local tasks.
all right. Anyone else have opinions on this? Do you agree with Ralph? Are you also confused by this? So I think I'll repeat what I think I said last week, which is that the cause of this is that there are two different systems here, and the navigation bar is not based on the menu system, and the order of these local tabs is based on the menu system, where like perhaps menu system is a confusing term. It's more than just things you'll see under structure menus. Um, but Simo, I see you've unmuted yourself. You have something you want to say?
Uh, Not really. I just want to agree that it would make sense for them to be in the same order. And also, well, yeah. But then again, we do have some cases where some users only see some of the links. But even then, it probably doesn't change the order they are presented in. So then it would be just missing from, like if somebody doesn't have access to files, then files would be missing and the order would still be the same, what is visible.
Right. We generally don't show links to pages that users don't have access to. Yeah, and removing something from an alphabetical list still gives you an alphabetical list. Doesn't disturb the order. So this might be a difficult thing to implement. Um, so we would somehow have to get information into the navigation blocks that comes from some other system. And I guess the current implementation, I haven't looked too closely at it. I know that you have the option of rearranging the blocks. So I guess this is the content block and this is the administration block. You could switch the orders.
Um,
Go ahead.
Not within the block, if I'm not completely mistaken. You're able to change the order of the navigation block, but not the elements within the block. That is not possible. If you
Right.
go to configuration and then no to configuration and then user interface and then navigation blocks and then enable edit mode. And there you're just able to edit those navigation blocks as a whole, but not what is within them. So yeah, if you go into the context.
Right. I could change the order of them. I won't demonstrate that. And if I click on the pencil icon, I can remove it. That's moving the whole thing.
Exactly.
Right. So as an admin user on the site, I do not have the option to change the order of blocks, content, files, media, but I could move the whole block down beneath the structure menu.
But I just looked if you go back and save. There is the option if you go under structure and then under menus. And then go into the content menu, edit menu content.
So that's obscured by one of the Zoom windows. Just a second.
Oh,
Content.
and if you scroll down there, you see basically the structure that is available. And there you see basically the order for blocks and content is not met.
Right. So this has the same order that we see here.
But,
and if I were to rearrange this, if I were to
yeah,
put content at the end, just to be perverse, does the navigation bar update?
yeah.
Yes. All right, so this is based on that menu, I guess.
Yeah. But one question, you've mentioned navigation bar is not based on the menu systems. Local tasks are. So is the menu system you just edited a different one than the menu system the local tasks are based on?
Yes, as I said, I was using menu system in a broad sense. That's more than just
Oh, okay.
individual menus, and
It's a different
it,
concept. Okay.
yes, it is confusing. So perhaps this isn't a flaw in the navigation menu since it is getting the order of these from the menu. So maybe it's a problem that the local tasks are not getting it from that menu, or maybe the menu should get its weights from the local tasks. So in other words, I don't know which one should be the source of truth,
Hmm.
but it does seem to be that the local tasks here, and I think I have menus open in this tab already. And it was the content menu, wasn't it?
Yes.
Um, so um, maybe that's where the problem lies, that this order, which the admin can control, and the ordered local tabs, which I don't think the admin can control. I think that comes from code.
Hmm.
Maybe those should be kept in sync.
Yeah. So basically, what I've written, the top level menu items in the local task should be identical in number and order. That is basically the gist.
Right.
Okay. I
Oh,
can
and
update.
another thing I said last week that I'll say again, it might be impossible to enforce consistency all the time, but at least the standard profile and the umami profile should start off with something that's consistent. And if it turns out that we really can't change the order of the local tasks to match the menu, um, we should at least give people a starting point where it's consistent.
It would be but it would be interesting. There is what is the name? The storage module. We're able to create custom entities by Clue is his nickname. Um, I think I'll test after the meeting, or maybe you could quickly install. I'm not sure if it's possible to install right now. But that one is adding a local task to the content page, if I remember correctly. And then it would be interesting to see how basically modules from Contrib behave in that context.
Window you can't see, I just tried to install that and it doesn't work, presumably because it doesn't declare compatibility with the main branch of Drupal core.
Drupal 12 problem. Oh, yeah. Many stumbling blocks right now.
Going back once again to issue for today's meeting where you've left these notes. Shall we go on to the next point?
Yeah. It's in two related issues, basically. But we have
Okay.
to look at it as a whole.
All right, let me open them both and then we can.
And in that context, there is another bug that will complicate the illustration and demonstration a bit. I posted in the chat.
Okay, so let's look at this one first. 3450066. Add icons to the submenu items available within Create. Okay, so I think the screenshot there shows that these don't have icons,
It's the current state, basically.
right?
Yeah.
Whereas the top level items in the navigation bar do have icons. And then
If you scroll down a bit, there are also, oops.
Scroll down here.
Yeah, because there is the problem if you have basically an content type called article, you have a media type called article, and you have, for example, a blog type called article, and you are unable to distinguish which is which. It's basically a masked object.
Okay. And I guess I can hover over this and see the link I'm going to, and that's a workaround, but certainly not a convenient one. So here, document is a media type, so I can see media add something in the lower left corner of my screen. Part of it is obscured by Zoom. Um, but it would be, as I said, that's not convenient. It would be nice to have some other indication.
Yep. Last you have the problem that in the status bar, the typography is small, the font size, and also it's not in close proximity. Going back to the one from last week, was it, or the week before, where basically with you doing the straw test, and if you have to go from the point you hover down to the status, keep the mouse up there, uh, the task is quite challenging
Right.
if you have certain problems.
And so the second issue you wanted us to look at is 3457729, grouping or prioritization for items in the Create menu. The updated Create menu displays a variety of items that can be created, including content, media, redirects, and users. This is very logical and an improvement on the previous structure, but it lacks consideration for priority or frequency. On many sites I've worked on, users almost never create media items outside of content, so having each type as an option here complicates the decision process unnecessarily. So I guess this is a second issue related to this Create menu.
Yes.
And your recommendation would be to add icons, and the resolution here is to group by type. This is a fantastic way to reduce clutter and make it easier for users to find what they need by grouping similar entity types together: content type, media, user, other. Users can quickly scan the menu and identify the right option. This also helps address the potential name clashing, for example, of video content type and media type, as options within a group are less likely to have conflicting names. So in this screenshot, what was it? Video content type and media type. Well, that's not illustrated in this screenshot. But that is, so what you were suggesting, two things named article, one of which would be a content type and the other of which I guess a media type, could be a block type.
And if you go back to the issue of mine and scroll down a bit, I've also created a example how it would look like with a flat list of entity types. But on the other hand, if for the group, that the proposal for the group has the same problem still, even though they group it, but you still have to simply read, and you have no additional cues to distinguish what is, for example, content, what is media. You have to read, and it's again not something I would recommend, and therefore, if going with a group, I would still recommend adding the icon to the group label.
I think
Go ahead.
I like grouping better. Here, one thing I'm thinking is that they could be submenus in a way that we have an option to have set a submenu to be open by default, if that's possible, so that we could have a media collapsed and content open, so that it would reduce the amount of items there, and then the style would be familiar. With icons, I'm concerned that adding icons to everything will be confusing. So it's probably a debate with some people for and against, but one of the criticisms for current OS X user interface was that it's adding icons where it's not obvious. So I think instead of icons, I think I would prefer maybe text or something else than icon, because too many icons, then we start having like it's starting to get cluttered. So I personally would prefer having those grouped.
Okay, you think the icons just provide too much visual clutter and you prefer the group.
Yeah, and also it's not so clear what an icon means. So if there would be icon for per group, then or something, but from this example with the groupings, the grouping would need to be visually different, but not having an icon for each content type would be, I think, better.
Oh, just one quick response to that. You say it's not clear what the icons represent, but if I look over here, this box with some horizontal lines in it is content, and that's reused here. So maybe it takes a second glance rather than the first glance, but I think the icons have this legend over here in the lower in the left. Ralph, what did you want to say?
Just wanted also to add, and the reason why I've brought up those two issues alongside instead of simply picking one is I agree that basically on long lists, it becomes cumbersome and overwhelming, as Simo said. I sort of agree, but on shorter lists, I consider icons helpful, and therefore I wonder if it would make sense to again add an option for the user that they're able to either decide which approach to take, grouping or flat, and all, or maybe even add a threshold to say if you have more than, let's say, 10 entities, then switch to group or something like that. And on the other hand, I also like the suggestion you've made to make basically the groups collapsible. So you have basically sub menus, like for example on the configuration and the like on the pages. And as you as you've said with the expansion, it might be the simplest one is that is something that is also being worked on currently for the navigation module. Strictly speaking, it is necessary if you expand a top-level menu item that the focus switches to the first item in the list, and that way it could be simply handled. Focus switches to basically, could you switch over to the tab for the group issue, please, Benji? That when you open that basically the content subgroup is automatically in focus and expanded, something like that.
So you're thinking that this content, for example, would not be a link, it would just be a header for the list below it.
Yeah, if you go basically, could you switch to the umami side and go into, for example, configuration?
Configuration.
That you have instead of people, you have content, system is block, content authoring is files and comments and so forth, so that you then are able to expand. And in that you have then the list of available content types or media types and so forth.
I'm sorry, I was experimenting with keyboard navigation. If I hit enter here, nothing happens. If I hit space, if I click, then this expands. If I use the cursor to go down, then content authoring loses its focus. And I'll do that again. I click the down cursor and it loses focus. It's not clear that this sub-item now has focus, although I think it does. When I hit enter, that's what gets triggered.
But that is odd.
Oh, there's a very subtle change in font weight as I switch between these two.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I cut you off, Ralph.
Uh, you've said you're unable to expand or collapse that sub menu, the user interface with the return or space key?
Well, currently the focus is on the sub-items, navigation blocks and navigation settings. And if you look closely, you can see I'm toggling between the two of them and the font weight changes. But this bar on the left does not follow that focus. And maybe I can tab. If I do shift tab, if I shift tab twice, I get back here, and presumably now I can close it again. That seems a little awkward. One, two, and now
Escape isn't working.
shift tab.
Well,
If I escape here, that closes it. Anyway, I'm sorry, we have only a few minutes left. Let's not go down that rabbit hole just yet, but let's try to wrap up the discussion of um, grouping in the create menu. That's what we were talking about, right?
Yeah.
Um, so one problem with grouping is that on some sites, on the site owners don't want to have a distinction between node types, which are called content in the admin UI, between node types and media types. Um, and their content editors don't necessarily know that one thing is that these are different entity types, that's an implementation detail that we generally try to hide from content editors. Um, on my current site at work, we have publications from the bib site module, and we try not to make it obvious that there's a distinction between publications and the various content types. Um, so, so I think many site owners don't want to have grouping.
it should be, I think, optional, and for if it's only maybe 5 items on the list, so it shouldn't be grouped. It would be just adding more complexity.
Ralph, go ahead.
Um, One idea, would it make sense instead of having a user setting on a settings page to have basically in, for example, the upper right corner of that create submenu, a toggle switch button where you're able to switch between a flat and a grouped display. So you have two different views you're able to change in context.
So yeah, I don't really love any of these solutions. It would be nice to have a single thing that works well without introducing additional complexity. And I wonder whether if these navigation blocks are based on menus, structure menus, if there's a content menu, then the site owner has the option of making it hierarchical or not. And um, perhaps that would be a way to control it that doesn't introduce sort of new patterns for additional code complexity.
Yeah, I think that if it's configurable, then it's something that can be done.
Right. Instead of introducing a new configuration setting somewhere using this existing structure. Okay, we are a little past the hour. I apologize for that. Any last comments?
Just one question to summarize. So basically, the setting to decide if it should be flat or grouped should ideally be put on that menu, on the create menu here in this context. That would be the consensus. And in regards of iconography, um, do you agree that basically icons should be added either in the flat to every menu item, or if it's grouped to the group labels?
I think Simo's opinion was that adding an icon to every menu was a bad idea, but I don't think anyone objected to adding icons to the groups.
Yeah, but the problem is basically if you have a flat list, then icons are still needed. Otherwise, you're unable, if you have name collisions in between entity types, you have masked objects and you're unable to distinguish it, which I consider a big problem.
Is it possible to create two entities with the same name and different machine name, like two content types that are called the same, but they have different machine names?
Oh, I'm pretty sure that's
Yes,
possible.
that's
So,
possible.
so even then, it's kind of it's a far fetch, but one could also have that confusion.
Yeah, but still, the icon still symbolizes basically what object type you have and doesn't mask it. And then what the label is, and if you have identical label, then it's totally up to basically the site builder and their shortcoming. That shouldn't be the responsibility of Drupal core, to be honest. But I think for the case of having two different entity types with the same name, that should be clearly communicated.
I now have two content types labeled basic page. But we are really getting past the hour. And I think we have to cut off the discussion. We can continue it in Slack. We could continue it next week. And I'd like to spend some time seeing what the current behavior is as well, but not now.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you again for coming. I'm not sure whether I'll be here next week, but the meeting can always go on without me. I'll try to post in Slack when I figure out my schedule.
Okay, okay. Have a nice weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
That's fine. But
Bye.